Marjorie, thank you so much. It means a very great deal that you took time to come out here tonight for me personally and for everybody here. Your contribution to politics in Canada as a woman cannot be matched. So thank you very much. So, welcome everyone. The campaign started officially yesterday. Our office is opening today. Our team is here. You'll have met all of them. It's a fantastic team, a hard-working team. Marjorie LeBreton joins us this evening, someone who knows a thing or two about getting organized for elections, and she's here to inspire us. And you, all of you, are part of what we're starting to call the blue wave that is coming to Ottawa Centre. So, let's take just a few moments to talk about what you're going to hear from us, from the campaign team over the next course of our activities leading up to the election. I'll talk a little bit later too about myself, trying to introduce myself door to door here in Ottawa Centre, and I'll share that with you as well. And at the end of the evening, if we have time, let's just chat about what's important to you. You're all residents here of Ottawa Centre. What are you thinking about as we get organized and into the full campaign mode? What's important to you? So what are we going to talk about as Conservatives and as our campaign here in Ottawa Centre and indeed across the country? We're going to talk about a competent and caring Conservative government, a government that lives within its means and is fiscally responsible. We're going to talk about a government that will build a strong economy, one that invests in basic research and infrastructure. A government that invests in priorities that are important to Canadians, like healthcare, like climate action. And a government that works with the provinces and territories to tackle and resolve difficult, complex problems, not admire them from afar like the current Liberals tend to do. And we're going to talk about a government that puts more money in your pockets so you and your family can get ahead. So who am I? Who is your candidate here in Ottawa Centre? I live in the Civic Hospital area. I'm a first-time candidate. My spouse is his name is Jacques Lamel. He's running late tonight. This is playtime at the dog park for Mr. Lobo, so I think it's probably
priorities.
A good game of find the ball and don't give it up going on somewhere in Fairmont Park right now. I'm one of 106 female candidates in the Conservative family, which I think is something to be proud of, all of us proud of. Marjorie mentioned my career was in healthcare. I was the president and CEO, the first female president and CEO of the Canadian Hospital Association. Just a few words on our opponents, on the Liberals, in particular their slogan, choosing forward. I don't get it. I don't get it because they keep on referring to Mr. Harper, to Mr. Ford. These are people, as far as I know, have already been elected and are not on the ballot in 2019. So they keep saying the word forward, but they appear to be pretty much stuck somewhere in the past, maybe in 2015, as if the past 4 years of their mandate, their track record, doesn't count, or we somehow missed it in passing. So what do we know about their record? We know it's disastrous. We know there have been very serious ethical issues. In fact, the Canada's Ethics Commissioner confirmed Andrew Scheer's assessment of Justin Trudeau as someone who is not as advertised. He was found to have blatantly contravened the Conflict of Interest Act with partisan intent, attempting to improperly influence an Attorney General of Canada concerning SNC's criminal prosecution. Liberals are also not quick to talk about their record on fiscal management, and for obvious reason. Can voters trust the Liberals to be responsible fiscal managers? Based on the past 4 years, definitely not. In spite of a solemn promise from the Prime Minister in 2015 to balance the federal government, balance the federal budget, and favorable economic times, rather benign economic times, the forecasted debt for 2020 is, get ready for this, $729.4 billion, with debt interest charges on that debt of $27 billion. So in 4 years, the Liberals, with passive, sloppy management, produced 4 successive deficits, this year's topping $20 billion, and a federal debt that is now $700 billion and growing. In the month of August alone, journalist David Aiken, a well-known journalist, counted 4,545 new Liberal spending commitments, totaling $12.8 billion. So, when the Liberals do talk of their fiscal record, they often mention, they often claim to lift kids from poverty with increases to the Canada Child Benefit. That's a program Conservatives will protect if elected. But the Liberals conveniently overlook the burden that they're simultaneously loading onto the backs of these same kids with a $700 billion debt that is growing. Which brings me to why I'm running. Why did I decide to run for election? I share voters' concerns about today's cost of living, its affordability into the future, and disappointment here in Ottawa Centre in the incumbent Liberal MP's absence on local issues. I want to speak up for Ottawa Centre. I want to bring our community into the priorities that are set and the choices that are made on federal spending and taxation proposals, because they have such an effect on all of us, on our daily lives. I am alarmed by the Liberal government's lack of fiscal responsibility, which is certain to negatively affect debt loads into the future on kids of the future, and will certainly negatively affect our ability to fund very complex problems across the country, and complex issues like how do we invest in healthcare, how do we prepare for an aging population, and climate action as well. These are areas where we need federal leadership and the ability to invest appropriately and adequately over time. We're also not as well positioned as we should be after 4 years of relatively good economic times to cope with an economic downturn. Because of the large debt, we are not as well positioned as we could have been and should have been. I will mention that, in my view, Catherine McKenna has not been responsive on local issues. She has been often silent or absent, or in some cases actively unhelpful on local issues. The Shadow Laurier Edition, for example, Tunney's pasture redevelopment, the Breton Flats, the NCC, she's not interested or certainly not heard on those issues. So Ottawa Centre needs an MP that cares about local issues that affect all our quality of life. Healthcare is an area of real concern. Waiting times at emergency rooms are worrisome. At this point in time, if you're trying to find an alternate level of care for a frail or elderly loved one, it's also a challenging process. If your family physician retires and you're trying to find a new one, good luck with that. It's also a very challenging process here. So healthcare needs attention. One of the things I'm very proud of in the Conservative platform is our commitment to maintain and increase federal transfers in the Canada Health Transfer transfer by at least 3% every year. That is an incredibly important commitment for stable and adequate, stable and predictable funding for health transfers. It's a big deal. It's something that I spent a good portion of my career in days gone by advocating for. In terms of climate change, climate action, I share many of the same concerns I think you have about a sense of urgency. It's a definite issue, it's a definite concern, a threat to us all. We need to be active and effective in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Just a reminder, Canada's commitment under the Paris Agreement, those are conservative commitments. It was the previous conservative government that signed on and put our targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions into the Paris Accord. Under the Liberals and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Catherine McKenna, we are falling short on progress towards those targets. We are failing in our responsibility to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to miss the 2020 targets by a wide margin. Forecasters at the Climate Action Tracker, when looking at the Liberal plans, label them as insufficient. We will not meet our 2030 targets as planned, as if we follow what's in the Liberal plans at the moment. Liberals are not forthcoming or upfront about that on the lack of progress or on the cost of their plans. In my view, Ms. McKenna has failed significantly in what was her prime responsibility. That was to work with the provinces and territories to make real progress on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Instead, we're in a situation where more than half the provinces and the bulk of the Canadian representing the bulk of the Canadian population are now either challengers or interveners in a Supreme Court case against the federal government. Her job as minister was to work towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions with the provinces and territories. They're going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting on that very challenging area. She needed to